Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you today to talk about a topic that many may find difficult to confront, yet is essential to recognize in order to lead a life of true empowerment, self-respect, and inner peace. We live in a world that constantly pushes us to be friendly, approachable, and agreeable, especially when it comes to men. While these traits can serve us in many ways, there are times when being too friendly to men might hinder our personal growth and peace of mind. Today, I invite you to reflect on your interactions with men, not with judgment or condemnation, but with a clear understanding of how we must first nurture ourselves and protect our emotional energy. So, let us journey together as we explore this important theme. Stop being too friendly to men. The energy we give out is the energy we receive in return. If we're not careful with how we share our kindness, our love, and our emotional resources, we may find ourselves drained, frustrated, and even disrespected. It is not a call to close yourself off from men, but rather to set boundaries, prioritize your self-worth, and recognize when too much of your time and energy is spent on others at the expense of your peace. Let's explore the reasons why it's time to stop being too friendly to men and start honoring your inner self. Redefining friendliness, understanding boundaries, and self-worth. Being friendly should always come from a place of genuine connection. But we must first ask ourselves, what does it mean to be too friendly? Friendliness is a beautiful quality, but it becomes problematic when we start to overextend ourselves in the hope of being liked or validated by others, especially by men. This overextension often stems from a lack of self-worth or a desire for approval. When we show up as constantly available, agreeable, and overly accommodating, we might inadvertently devalue our own needs and desires. When we give without asking for something in return, we can sometimes lose sight of our own emotional boundaries. This is where the key distinction between being truly friendly and being overly friendly comes into play. Overly friendly behavior often involves neglecting your own emotional needs in favor of catering to the expectations of others. The first step in learning to protect your peace is to redefine what friendliness means to you and establish personal boundaries. Recognize that being friendly should never mean compromising your dignity, peace, or emotional well-being. Self-worth and boundaries are intrinsically linked. If we don't understand our worth, we may feel the need to earn respect and love by being overly friendly, but that only invites the opposite. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, and this includes respecting your own emotional needs. Setting boundaries is not about being unkind or rejecting others. It's about recognizing that your well-being should always come first. When you make your own happiness a priority, you are better able to serve others from a place of genuine love, not depletion. This journey begins by asking yourself, do I feel valued in my interactions? Or am I constantly giving without receiving? Are my needs being met, or am I overlooking them for the sake of others? This self-reflection is crucial because it allows you to step into a place of power where you no longer feel compelled to be too friendly to gain approval or affection. Your worth isn't determined by how much you give, but by the respect and love you give to yourself. Recognizing the hidden cost of overgiving. Emotional drain. Have you ever given too much of yourself and felt exhausted, empty, or misunderstood? Many women have experienced the emotional drain that comes from overgiving in relationships, particularly when it comes to men. Overgiving doesn't always appear as an obvious problem. Sometimes, it's as simple as constantly making yourself available, always saying yes, and being there for others, even when it doesn't serve your emotional well-being. The problem with overgiving is that it takes a toll on your energy reserves. Emotional energy is just as important as physical energy, and when we give too much of it away, we can feel depleted. We might even find ourselves resentful of the people we've been giving to because they've taken so much without considering how it affects us. However, it is not their fault. It's a result of us not setting clear emotional boundaries. Emotional drain doesn't always show up immediately. In fact, it can be subtle, creeping in over time until we realize we're left with little to no energy for ourselves. It manifests in physical symptoms like fatigue, irritability, anxiety, and a general sense of being overwhelmed. More importantly, it leads to emotional burnout, where even the simplest tasks feel burdensome, and we begin to lose sight of what really matters. We have given so much of ourselves that we have nothing left to give. In relationships, emotional drain can lead to a lack of fulfillment, even if you are constantly trying to make others happy. When we're too friendly, we may feel the weight of others' expectations, not realizing that we've put their needs ahead of our own. But when we start to place our own needs first and recognize when we've reached our emotional limit, we begin to heal. We learn to protect ourselves and regain control of our emotional energy. This is not about being selfish. It's about self-care. Recognizing the hidden cost of overgiving means understanding that your emotional energy is precious. You cannot continue to pour from an empty cup, and by respecting your emotional boundaries, you protect yourself from exhaustion. It is time to acknowledge that it's okay to say no, to take a step back, and to prioritize your own emotional health. The more you respect your energy, the more you can give in a balanced, healthy way. Over-accommodation, losing yourself in the process. Over-accommodation is a pattern where we consistently put the needs and desires of others ahead of our own. When we do this in relationships with men, we risk losing sight of our own values, desires, and aspirations. It can become a habit to always agree, always be there for others, and always make sure everyone else is happy. In the process, we forget what it means to live authentically, staying true to our own desires and values. Over-accommodation often starts with good intentions. We want to be seen as helpful, supportive, and caring. But when this behavior becomes excessive, we find ourselves bending over backward for others, often at the cost of our own needs. We lose ourselves in the process because we are so focused on making others comfortable that we forget to nurture our own sense of self. In romantic relationships, over-accommodation can create an unbalanced dynamic. One person becomes the constant giver while the other takes. This imbalance can lead to feelings of resentment as we realize that our needs are not being met, yet we continue to give in the hope that it will somehow make everything better. We must learn to stop over-accommodating in order to foster relationships that are built on mutual respect and equality. Recognizing when we've lost ourselves in the process is essential. It's time to step back and ask ourselves, am I being true to myself? Am I honoring my values, or am I compromising them for the sake of pleasing others? When you become aware of this pattern, you can take steps to recenter yourself and begin to reclaim your sense of self. This isn't about being difficult or uncooperative. It's about ensuring that you don't lose your identity in the pursuit of making others comfortable. The path to reclaiming your authentic self starts with saying no to things that don't align with your values, desires, or boundaries. It's okay to take a stand for yourself, even if it means disappointing others. It's okay to walk away from situations that don't serve your highest good. By doing so, you make room for relationships that honor and support your authenticity. Setting boundaries, a key to healthy relationships. Setting boundaries is essential in any relationship. Yet it can be especially difficult when we're conditioned to be overly friendly, approachable, and accommodating. Boundaries aren't just about saying no. They are about honoring your emotional space and understanding what you are and are not willing to accept from others. When we don't set clear boundaries, we invite disrespect into our lives. Others may take advantage of our kindness, assuming that we are always available or willing to put their needs above our own. This behavior often leads to resentment, frustration, and burnout. However, boundaries serve as a protective shield that allows us to interact with others in a healthy, balanced way. They help us communicate our needs clearly and respect ourselves enough to enforce those needs. It's crucial to remember that boundaries are not walls. They don't create distance. They create healthy space where both parties can coexist and interact in a mutually respectful way. When we set boundaries, we send the message that we value ourselves enough to prioritize our own well-being. This not only improves our emotional health, but also helps build healthier, more respectful relationships with others, including men. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you have to be harsh or confrontational. It simply means communicating your needs and being firm about what is acceptable and what is not. If you need space, say so. If you don't feel like engaging in certain activities, express it clearly. When you begin to set boundaries, you'll notice that people respect you more, not because you're being rigid, but because you are demonstrating self-respect. Remember, boundaries are an act of self-love. They protect your emotional energy and give you the space to nurture yourself. The more you practice setting boundaries, the easier it becomes to navigate relationships with men and others in a way that honors your inner peace. Shifting expectations, finding balance between care and self-respect. The way we expect others to treat us often reflects the way we treat ourselves. When we are overly friendly to men, we might be sending the message that we don't value our own needs as much as we value theirs. It's easy to slip into a pattern of overgiving, thinking that by doing so we will be loved, valued, or respected in return. However, these expectations can set us up for disappointment. The key to finding balance in any relationship is understanding the difference between caring for others and respecting your own needs. When you give from a place of love and genuine care, it feels good because it aligns with your values. However, when you give with the expectation of getting something in return, whether it's love, attention, or validation, you are setting yourself up for emotional dissatisfaction. It's important to shift your expectations. Learn to care for others without the need for validation. When you stop seeking external approval, you begin to experience the freedom to be yourself without compromise. You learn to give because you want to, not because you expect anything in return. This shift in mindset allows you to engage in relationships in a healthier, more balanced way. As you shift your expectations, you'll also start to attract relationships that mirror this balanced approach. You'll find that the more you value yourself and set healthy boundaries, the more you will receive the respect and care you deserve. This is not a transactional approach. It's about mutual understanding, shared values, and a deep respect for one another's emotional space. By releasing the need for validation from others, you also free yourself from the emotional roller coaster that often accompanies relationships. You are no longer dependent on external factors to feel worthy or loved. Instead, you cultivate that love from within, creating a stable foundation for all your relationships. Healing from the past, releasing the need to seek approval. Many women carry wounds from their past, experiences where they were taught that their value was tied to how much they could give, please, or accommodate others. These past experiences shape how we interact with men and the world at large. To truly stop being too friendly, we must heal from the past and release the need for approval. Healing begins with recognizing that your worth is not contingent on how others perceive you. It's about letting go of the belief that you need to constantly give or be available in order to be loved or respected. This belief system was likely formed in childhood or past relationships, and it no longer serves you. Healing involves unlearning these patterns and rewriting the story you tell yourself about your value. It's important to acknowledge the pain that comes from seeking approval and the toll it takes on your emotional well-being. This pain may manifest as a fear of rejection, feelings of inadequacy, or a deep sense of unworthiness. But once you begin to heal, you realize that you are more than enough just as you are. You don't need to bend over backward to earn love or approval. You are worthy of respect and care without having to give up your emotional needs. Healing also means forgiving yourself for the times you overgave or neglected your boundaries. It's about understanding that you did the best you could with the knowledge and resources you had at the time. As you heal, you gain clarity and strength to move forward with a renewed sense of self-worth and emotional independence. The journey of healing is not always easy, but it's incredibly empowering. As you release the need for approval, you start to see yourself in a new light, one that is grounded in self-love, respect, and authenticity. This inner transformation allows you to approach all your relationships, including those with men, in a way that honors your emotional boundaries and nurtures your sense of self. Finding inner peace, the power of self-acceptance. The journey to stopping the habit of being too friendly begins with finding inner peace. Inner peace comes from self-acceptance, understanding that you are worthy of love, respect, and care without needing to prove it. When you accept yourself fully, without judgment or guilt, you free yourself from the patterns that no longer serve your highest good. Self-acceptance is not about perfection. It is about embracing who you are, flaws and all. It's about understanding that you are enough just as you are. When you accept yourself, you no longer seek validation from others. Instead, you find peace in knowing that you are complete and whole. This peace becomes the foundation for all of your relationships. As you cultivate inner peace, you begin to attract healthier interactions with others. You no longer feel the need to be overly friendly to win people's affection. Instead, you show up authentically, confident in who you are and what you bring to the table. This authenticity creates space for meaningful connections that are rooted in mutual respect, not transactional exchanges. The more you practice self-acceptance, the more you will experience the freedom to be yourself without fear of rejection or judgment. You'll no longer feel the need to please others at the expense of your peace. You'll find that true happiness comes from within, and that is the most powerful gift you can give to yourself. Through self-acceptance, you discover the joy of simply being. You are no longer defined by what others think or expect from you. Instead, you define yourself on your own terms. This newfound sense of self-worth becomes the catalyst for a life full of love, peace, and authentic connections. As we navigate our lives, it's essential that we prioritize ourselves. We need to recognize when being too friendly, overly accommodating, or constantly seeking approval is no longer serving us. By redefining friendliness, setting boundaries, and practicing self-care, we can create relationships that honor our emotional well-being. The key lies in realizing that our worth comes from within and that we are deserving of respect, love, and care without having to sacrifice our emotional energy. It is time to stop being too friendly to men and start honoring the most important relationship you will ever have, the one with yourself.